Woman spots an exact replica of her missing cat down the street. Your pet cat likely lands on one end of the cat spectrum, indoor cat or outdoor cat. You likely won't lose your lazy loaf of an indoor cat. He probably doesn't move too far from the recliner. But outdoor cats are a different story. While they almost always find their way home, what if one day your cat never returned? When Joe and Ade Hayes' beloved pet cat went out adventuring in 2006, they were heartbroken when he didn't come home. Time passed, they moved away, which made it all the more surprising when they saw a cat that looked awfully familiar. Joe and Ade Hay from Stubbington, Hampshire, got Charlie when he was just 7 weeks old. He was the sweetest little black and white kitten with glowing green eyes, and the English couple were happy to welcome him to his forever home. Charlie lived a happy life with his new parents in the suburban village of Stubbington, which he loved adventuring through. They trusted Charlie enough to let him walk around the south coast of England, confident he'd always make it home safely. This went on for 9 years, so imagine the Hayes shock when one day in 2006, Charlie never came back home to his family. They did their best to avoid panicking, as that wouldn't solve anything. Instead, they made it their mission to find their fur baby. The anguished couple put up the lost cat posters around the neighborhood and desperately contacted local veterinarian offices and animal shelters in hopes that someone brought Charlie in. Alas, this was all to no avail. Sadly, life had to go on. Joe and Ade couldn't grieve forever. The couple wound up packing up and moving to a neighborhood over 2 miles from the house that they once owned and raised Charlie in. The couple hadn't visited their previous, charming village in quite a while, but Joe stopped by the town they once called home when her mother was looking to purchase a property in that region in 2012. Anything for Mom. My mom's sister and I were looking at a place close to the house Ade and I lived in when Charlie went missing, said Joe. Being back to their old stomping grounds brought back memories of Charlie. If it wasn't for the bungalow my mom's sister and I were looking at, we wouldn't have been around there, she continued. Perhaps there was more than one reason Joe was brought back to the area. It originally seemed like just an uneventful trip back to her old neighborhood, when suddenly Joe spotted an oddly familiar-looking black and white cat outside a house. It looked like a replica of Charlie. When we saw this cat on a wall outside a house, I was immediately 99.9% sure it was Charlie, Joe recalled. But since she hadn't seen her precious furball in about 6 years, it would be a miracle if it were really him. He was a lot skinnier but came straight over to me and responded to his name, Joe explained. But of course, the cat could have just been responding to sound. She needed to know for sure. Joe had a strong gut feeling that this random cat in her former neighborhood was in fact her missing pet. So she did what any crazy cat lady would do. She took him. Joe immediately booked it to the animal shelter she worked at as a receptionist to check the wandering mystery cat for a microchip, as she and her husband had one implanted in Charlie. The microchip test would reveal the truth. Unbelievably, the microchip test revealed that this enigma of a cat truly was Charlie, who was 16 years old as of 2012. I'm over the moon to have him back. We shed a few tears when the microchip test worked, Joe gushed. It was fate. Joe went and spoke to the man who lived in the house she found Charlie in front of, where she learned that he'd been feeding Charlie for nearly 2.5 years. If only Charlie could talk to tell the tales of his 6-year journey. Charlie had always been quite a friendly cat. When we lived in Stubbington, he would often go down to the nearby stables where they would feed him. So it's no surprise he found someone to look after him in the intervening years, Joe explained. Joe and Ade were beyond grateful to have their 4-legged friend back in their home. But things were much different in the Hay household since Charlie last lived with them, as the family now had 2 other cats, 2 dogs, and beautiful twin babies, Drew and Daniela. Though he was always a mischievous, fun-loving outdoor kitty, Joe and Ade were understandably wary of the idea of letting him outside again. Regarding the idea, Joe then stated, "We will eventually, but I don't know when I'll be brave enough. He's got the meow of an older cat now, and you can tell he's grown up into an older boy. He's settling back in and doesn't seem too fazed by the children. Joe relayed of Charlie's progress. The Hays had always wondered what happened to Charlie after he disappeared, but that no longer mattered. Charlie was finally home. Though the story of Joe and Ade's runaway cat is miraculous, cats are survivors, and this kind of thing happens more often than you'd think.